John Wayne playing Genghis Khan was bad. I can say those things, and no one will call me a racist for it, unless they're doing it jokingly. But if I have an issue with a black...
Ooh, well, what if I throw a curveball at you and tell you, on its surface, let me go ahead and blow your mind here right now. In a vacuum, race swapping any characters, I don't care. I don't care. In a vacuum. Removing all societal context, I don't care. Get the best person for the job. Awesome. Cool. The problem is, throughout all of history, there has been a massive amount of white people playing characters of color. The most recent example I can think of would be the Ancient One in Doctor Strange. Don't want to slight Tilda Swinton. Tilda Swinton's a fantastic actress. She's white. Ancient One's not white. This has been happening throughout history, and now it's just kind of getting tilted the other way, just a bit. And now you guys are blowing up. And it's interesting how you guys are blowing up at this thing that's pretty much been going on throughout history, except the other way. And that's why you kind of get called racist, because when it's been happening forever, but now it just happens to be happening a bit the other way, all of a sudden you're triggered. And yeah, it's a bit telling. Just a Robot. You know, people mentioned Just a Robot. Let's go ahead and look at Just a Robot. That sounds like a fun one. This guy, I think I've seen this guy like years and years ago. I don't really know much about him though. Let's talk about Blackwashing. Oh. Blackwashing. Okay, that's 20 minutes. We can hit up that one. That sounds super cringe.
Boy, I can't wait to tear into the new Disney live-action Little Mermaid movie. But before that movie comes out, I want to talk about everyone's favorite topic.
Little Mermaid. I thought we were done. I guess this is 3 months old, but Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid, that huge controversy was like, when that blew up, that was like a year ago. So did you do this when the movie came out? I guess you gotta be opportunistic, I swear. Like, literally, Halle Bailey being cast as Ariel was released, that factoid was released, before the pandemic. And then when it came out in the trailer that she was playing Ariel, that's when everybody got outraged, even though it was known for years that she'd be playing Ariel. And now, probably about when the movie is coming out, you're gonna complain that she's playing Ariel? And I want to stress, as someone who didn't like that movie, she was phenomenal in it. She fucking nailed that role. I get why she got it. Like, the director was saying, like, she was the best person for the role. And upon watching it, I'm like, she probably fucking was. She nailed it.
Blackwashing. You see, black hair is much more curly, it has a much different texture, and it's far thinner than the hair of white people, Asian people, or any other type of hair that non-black people have. That is why I recommend for all my black viewers to use Professor Dreadlock's new conditioner. It will make your hair far easier to manage. And as for another blackwashing tip, you can... Hang on a second.
That was kind of cringe. Yes, black people have a different hair, and they have to do different things to manage it.
I just got a call from my agent. Apparently, I'm not talking about the right kind of blackwashing. Okay, let me look this up real quick. Oh, that's what blackwashing is. Oh, okay. Now you've probably heard of the term whitewashing before. It's when a documentary, comic book...
I mean, this is already, What the fuck? Okay.
Movie, TV show, or possibly even a video game makes a character who was originally supposed to be black, Asian, Native American, or some other race into a white guy. So I think it's obvious enough for you to put two and two together and assume that blackwashing is when they take a character who's white, Asian, Native American, or some other race and makes them black. Now, I've already made a video about how I feel when it comes to race bending, and how I feel about how diversity is done in my video Diversity, the Right and Wrong Ways to Do It. To give a quick rundown for those of you who haven't seen those videos,
Please, because I don't feel like going back. I've already gone a minute into this. I'm not going back.
most people like it when an
I've gone too far, man.
actor or actress looks like the character they're playing. Even with how many problems there were in the Aragon movie, people still went ballistic at the very first scene when they realized the actress' hair was dyed the wrong color. In the Captain N TV show, people were not happy with Mega Man being green when he was supposed to be blue. So yeah, whenever an adaptation is made, people like it when the character looks how they're supposed to look. But when the conversation moves to being about race over suit color or hair color, things get a little bit more complicated.
Okay, so I think it's worth noting, you're never ever going to get somebody who's an exact physical duplicate. You're just not. It's generally speaking good to go for the person who is the best at performing the role. So, like, when you cast people of different races, isn't that good? Like, getting the best person for the role, I think, would be the thing to go for.
Because a lot of popular characters, like Luke Skywalker, Ben 10, mythological or historical Roman and North characters, Marty McFly, Rick and Morty, Katniss Everdeen, Harry Potter, Indiana Jones, Spock, Mary Poppins, Superman, Batman, the Joker, Elsa, Thor, Timmy Turner, Dexter, and just so many more are all white. Hell, even anime characters like Ash, Sailor Moon, Goku, Naruto, Ichigo, Luffy, Eren Yeager, Saitama, Deku, and just so many other anime characters look white. Okay, granted, Eren Yeager is supposed to be white, but he's the only exception on that list. A lot of people try to argue against this point by saying things like, oh, well, there are a few Asians with blonde hair, and to be perfectly honest, these anime characters look Asian to me. Even though there are Asians with blonde hair, granted they're incredibly rare, and you may or may not see them as Asian, the point is, it's far easier for a white person to see these anime characters as white than it is for a black person to see them as black.
Hold your fire! This man...
Okay. True?
...isn't black!
So I can totally understand why black people would like, well, more black characters. Now, while skin color is certainly not the only reason why someone would relate to a character, it's still a reason. Not even close to the most important reason, but still.
Okay, Maxine Game. Where do you draw the line, though? Like, could you cast a woman to play a male character? Like a cis girl who doesn't try at all to look male playing a male character? It depends on the context. Every context matters. It's all different. Potentially, yes.
Still a reason. According to my roommate and best friend, Professor Dreadlock, AJ from Very Odd Parents was an extremely good influence on him growing up. Now granted, this character was never race bent, but it was still good representation nonetheless. Me and him go over this topic a little bit more in my video, Reverse Stereotypes. Now the overwhelming majority of people that I have seen at least, seem to be in agreement that an original black character is far better than a race bent one. But considering how studios, especially as of late, do not like to make new IPs. Instead, they're focused.
Okay, yeah, I feel like that's about the point he's going into. Studios like franchises, they like known names. So, and since a lot of those previously established IP already pretty much have predominantly white characters, yeah, they'll race swap. Yeah, I mean, they will cast alternate people in the roles, and I largely don't care. It doesn't seem like an issue.
Focused on making remakes, reboots, and other stuff like that. So how will an original black character be made? They could add a new character in who's black, I guess? No, of course not. They're gonna take a pre-existing character and change their race. Sometimes they'll make characters with the word black in their name black, like Black Canary in Suicide Squad. Or
Black Canaries. Wait, are you talking about Birds of Prey? That's gotta be Birds of Prey, right? Like, I don't think Black Canary was in Suicide Squad. In your written video, you might want to double check that shit. I guess it's a minor quibble, but yeah.
They'll do it to background and side characters who barely have any lines. Or they'll do it to 75% of the main cast like they did in Velma, which was absolutely terrible, by the way. Now, while they did race...
Yeah, nobody liked Velma, and I guess you're complaining about the race swaps. I didn't really see people really... Like, their big complaints weren't the race swaps.
And the Scooby-Doo characters, there's plenty of other versions where they're still white, all of which are better than the Velma show. And of course, I don't have a problem with a character who is non-white taking up the title of another hero, whether it be Spider-Man, Blue Beetle, Green Lantern, or others. Of course.
Cool, okay.
My favorite race bend of all time will forever be Asian Hulk. Oh, Jerry, we can't make a female Hulk because that already exists, and we can't make them black or Mexican because they'll just come out as green.
Don't worry, Tim, I have an idea. We'll make the Hulk Asian. That way, despite him being green, he'll have squinted eyes.
I would not be
Wow. This is... I'm having trouble responding because this is just really blatant. Like, oh, Jesus Christ, man.
happy with a character like Thor or Superman being played by a black guy. Not because I'm racist or anything,
Which I am, by the way.
but it's because that's not how the character is supposed to look. If they made I don't know, a Gargoyles movie, and
Well, I don't recall them ever doing that for such a major character, but also, if they get a good actor, I don't see what the issue would be either.
they made Goliath look like a griffin, I could say I don't like that, and no one would call me racist. And I'm gonna be 100% honest here. Excluding the representation white people get, I think black people get it the most in America. I can name over 20 black characters off the top of my head. I think I can only name 5 Native American characters. Sure, there's a lot of Asian and Latino characters as well, but most of them aren't as good or fleshed out as black characters. Unless, of course, we include anime or something. There's even a lot of black versions of movies, like The Wiz, or Black Cinderella. I haven't seen a Latino Cinderella movie, or an Asian Wizard of Oz. I don't mean to sound offensive,
Yes, movies exist.
but with how much certain people demand black representation, you would think they're the least represented group in media. Now I can keep going on and on about race.
You're really going down a bad path right now, because right now the path it seems like you're leading towards is representation is good as long as it isn't the blacks. Maybe that's a gross misread, but that really seems like where you're leaning towards. The blacks have enough. Okay, let's see.
Race bending. But the absolute worst form of race bending is when it happens to a culture or people, especially in a documentary. When white people do it, it's bad.
Oh, wait. That Cleopatra movie that they threw shit about, that wasn't a documentary, was it? Like, you know what a documentary is, right? Like, was that a documentary? I thought it was a fictionalized retelling. Let me double check. That would be a gross misrepresentation if that wasn't a documentary. It's a docudrama. I will give them credit. It actually says on here, a Netflix documentary. That being said, like there is such an outrage over this, and I cannot stress how little I care. Number one, I wouldn't think Cleopatra would be like super white or anything, so I don't know where that idea comes from. But nobody, the only people who care about this movie were the fucking chuds, I swear to God. It was just like, how dare we have a black Cleopatra in a movie? Like, we had Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra. Like, there's plenty of versions of Cleopatra. I don't care. I've never seen it. I'm probably never going to see it. I don't care. Why does everybody care about this all of a sudden? It's just an interesting thing to choose to get mad about.
Do it, it's bad. John Wayne playing Genghis Khan was bad. I can say those things and no one will call me a racist for it, unless they're doing it jokingly. But if I have an issue with a black...
Ooh, well what if I throw a curveball at you and tell you, on its surface, okay, so like John Wayne playing Genghis Khan wasn't an issue in my opinion because he was white. I just don't think he's a good casting choice for Genghis Khan. But it just, I just think John Wayne was just a stunt casting. But let me go ahead and blow your mind here right now. In a vacuum, race swapping any characters, I don't care. I don't care. In a vacuum. Removing all societal context, I don't care. Get the best person for the job. Awesome. Cool. The problem is, throughout all of history, there has been a massive amount of white people playing characters of color. The most recent example I can think of would be the Ancient One in Doctor Strange. Don't want to slight Tilda Swinton. Tilda Swinton's a fantastic actress. She's white. Ancient One's not white. This has been happening throughout history, and now it's just kind of getting tilted the other way, just a bit. And now you guys are blowing up. And it's interesting how you guys are blowing up at this thing that's pretty much been going on throughout history, except the other way. And that's why you kind of get called racist, because when it's been happening forever, but now it just happens to be happening a bit the other way, all of a sudden you're triggered. And yeah, it's a bit telling. It's interesting, to say the least.
After playing Achilles in the TV show Troy, suddenly, according to some people, I'm a racist. Now, while it is true that black Romans did historically exist, after all, Rome did have a lot of territory in northern Africa. But all the statues of Achilles show him as white, and Homer described...
Wait, what? All this, you're using that as an example of white Achilles? Like, that's a fucking statue, bro. I can't pull up that part of the video, but like, it's a goddamn statue. Are you fucking serious, bro?
In northern Africa, but all the...
This is an example of how, I can prove Achilles is white because of this statue. That's really bad fucking take. Like, unbelievably bad. Like, this number one, do we even know this statue represents any, like, actual person? Because Achilles is just a dude from Greek mythology. He is. Like, and you're like, this proves he's white? Like, it's just a statue of a dude from Greek mythology. Just, why do you care?
Statues of Achilles show him as white, and Homer described him as very young looking, even for his age, with long blonde hair. Now, Achilles is not a historical figure. He might have been based off one, but we don't know for sure. However, he is a mythological character, which still is a part of history at the end of the day. But then you have things like this BBC cartoon.
So, here's a question I have for you. What about the character of Achilles requires that he be white? What if maybe he was based on a historical figure, and what if that historical figure was black? There's lots of what ifs we can throw in there and play around with, and the fact is, all I'm trying to point out is that it doesn't fucking matter. Why do you care? I haven't even heard of this series. This Black Achilles, I haven't even heard of it. Why do you care? Like, you probably had to dig it up as an example. Who gives a shit? And I don't want to do like a value judgment, because it might be a perfectly fine series. I just haven't seen it, and I haven't even heard of it before now.
Life in Rome, Britain history, the story of Britain. Literally, the first character we see is black. Again, Roman centurions did exist. By the way, centurions were Roman officers who were put in charge of 100 men. But still, black centurions were quite rare, but I guess it is possible. But then we cut to a black gladiator and a black kid. And is that a white?
Yes. You just said black people existed in that part of the country during that time. You just said that. So, yes. Black people are existing in that part of the country, as you already established. Cool. It seems weird for you to establish that something was a thing and then complain that they're demonstrating it as a thing.
White slave next to him? Oh my god, a white guy just stole that black kid's scarf.
Yoink!
Now, once again, all of this is entirely possible, but
I don't know what that thing he's pulling from is, but that was really... the animation I've seen so far is not good. Maybe, I don't know, criticize it for having shoddy animation rather than having black characters. You see, like, when your criticism is that it's black characters, it comes off as fucking racist. You do understand that, right?
But super unlikely. There are other slaves in this cartoon, and of course all of them are white. My issue isn't that there's a black guy here or a black guy there, it's the consistency of all of it. It's clear that they cared more about being PC than historically accurate, but...
Is it historically accurate, or is it... Like, you're already jumping around like, oh, it's based on fiction, but it's based on reality. In reality, there was black people in this area, but I'm offended there's black people in this area, and they're being historically inaccurate, even though I'm kind of saying they are being Dude, how did you write this and not realize how fucking insane your argument is right now? Like, you are just going back and forth trying to figure out, like, how you can justify this shit. I swear to God.
Now let's get into the real reason as to why you clicked on this video. The current controversy around Netflix's documentary involving a black Cleopatra. Queen Cleopatra is a documentary, not a movie. So as much as I hate...
Do I need to explain that documentary is a style of movie? It's not like you're a documentary or a movie. The two are not fucking mutually exclusive, dude.
Hated the Woman King for being historically inaccurate. At the end of the day, it was a movie, not a documentary. This is a documentary.
He's just saying it again. What the... What are you doing?
So it's far worse.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!
It was directed by this woman, Tina. Let's just say she's not exactly the most popular actress in Hollywood. So you know how the audience score...
It was directed by this person. She's not the most popular actress in Hollywood. Dude, like, do you have any cohesive thoughts? Is she a director or an actress? Oh my... This is tough. This is a tough one. Holy shit. His stupidity is layers upon layers deep at this moment. And it's not just like he's being racist, because he's totally being racist, but like, he's just being extraordinarily stupid, too. It's kind of impressive how he layers it.
Or for the Woman King on Rotten Tomatoes was at 99%. Yeah, those numbers don't seem to be inflated at all. Well, the critics score...
Yeah, how dare people like the Woman King?
Or for this documentary on Rotten Tomatoes is at 11%, and the audience score, 1%.
Okay, here's what I think is interesting. Here's what I think is really fucking interesting, and it shows it right here. I don't even have to fucking research it. It's right fucking here. There are 9 official critics who reviewed this. There are thousands of audience scores on this. Now listen, there's definitely going to be more official or more audience than official critics that review it. But that ratio is insane. Massively insane. It really makes you think people are going into the audience score and shitting on just to shit on it. Like, dude, I'm not saying the audience are going to like this movie. I'm not. It sounds like it wasn't a good movie. But it really seems like there's a disbalance. Like, there's people going in just to hate it for the sake of hating it.
So if you combine it with the Woman King, I guess it adds up to 100%.
You know, The Woman King was actually a well-liked movie, just saying.
100% of historical bullshit. He even got sued on behalf of the entire country of Egypt. I didn't even know networks could get sued by countries. Now here's the thing, Cleopatra probably wasn't white either. Hell, I personally think the most accurate depiction of how she looked was actually in Clone High. But she definitely was at least part white. It was extremely well documented that she had Macedonian Greek heritage.
Wait. I mean, actual fandom, you're saying using Rotten Tomatoes to make any case, you know, is sus? Well, that would require this guy make a case. Like, he's not even making points. He's just bouncing around saying really fucking dumb shit.
And despite what the BBC wants you to think, a lot of Greeks weren't actually black. We also have portraits of her, statues of her, and even coins
They existed?
with her face on it. The portrait of her makes her look white with red hair. Gingers are about as far as you can get from black people.
Yeah, that looks like a really realistic picture, too. Fucking nailing it, man. Good research. That's a photograph, right? There's no artistic representation here. That's a fucking photo.
In terms of looks, at least, both gingers and black people are from the old world.
True, he is saying it fast, therefore smart. That's how that works. Talking fast equals intelligence. That's what Ben Shapiro teaches us, right? It's not just hiding stupidity, right?
Ancestry-wise, a Native American is far different than those two. Okay, maybe over the centuries, the colors just got washed out. The statue of her does depict her with curly hair, which a lot of black people do have, but it's not exactly the same curly hair as the average black person has.
Okay. Just, you're kind of breaking my brain right now. We're analyzing these statues to figure out whether or not Cleopatra can be black for a Netflix documentary that was universally panned, apparently. Maybe just move on. Like, everybody clearly hated this movie. Like, I have no interest in watching it. I'm almost certainly not going to watch it. I feel like the world has just moved on from this, and you're going out of your way to analyze stuff to figure out, like, a person's skin color, which comes off really fucking weird for something that is going to be, like, no matter what your thoughts are in that movie, those, the elements where she played Cleopatra are dramatized elements. Even if the movie is primarily a documentary, documentaries can have dramatized elements, and therefore it will just be actors doing it. And no, you're not going to get any actor that looks exactly like the original. That's not going to be a thing that happens. But yes, let's turn it into a multifaceted essay to figure out the exact skin color of Cleopatra based on paintings and statues, because that's totally a thing a not racist person would do.
In fact, I've seen a lot of white people with curly hair like that, and her facial features look pretty European to me. I mean, at least the coin of her looks.
It just keeps on going. This is so bad.
Looks kind of black, but that's probably because it's really, really rusted. But again, she has European facial features. Now here's the thing, I'm pretty sure she was not at all 100% white. Egypt is pretty close to the equator, and sunscreen wasn't exactly that common back then. Pure white people don't exactly handle the sun in the best way. But let's see the arguments that the people who created this documentary come up with for why she was actually black.
I imagine her to have curly hair like me and similar skin color.
Well, this black guy says he imagines
That was totally legible. Great job putting that together. Thank you.
her to have curly hair like him. Well, we have statues of her and she does not have curly hair like you. But you can keep using your imagination. He also imagines her to have a similar skin color as his. I hate to explain this, but I
think it's worth noting, when you have to jump through as many loops as this guy is to complain about a character being played by a black actress. When you're jumping through all these fucking hoops, maybe it would be better just to admit you're being fucking racist. Just saying.
You do know that what you imagine isn't real, right? You're not Coconut Fred. Does anybody remember that show? Well, it is true that Egypt was a big nation that lasted a very long time, and it was extremely ethnically diverse throughout its history. Fun fact, historically speaking, Cleopatra is actually closer to our time than the invention of the pyramids. There were both white and—
Oh, well then she's just a modern woman, right? Okay, what the fuck?
Black Egyptians. But what most people picture when they think of an Egyptian is a guy with copper skin. Okay, I'm sure there's better arguments than what this guy can come up with. Let's hear what this old lady has to say.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
Oh, your grandmother told you to ignore what they tell you in school and that Cleopatra was black. I think your grandmother just told you that to help your self-esteem. Your grandmother is not a historian, and I'm not gonna lie, I think saying the original Egyptians were black is probably the most common talking point by Hoteps. Okay, well, let's see what the showrunners have to say about all the backlash they got. Maybe that's where they saved all their good arguments. Why shouldn't Cleopatra be a melanated sister? And why do some people need Cleopatra to be white? Her proximity to whiteness seems to give her value, and for some Egyptians—
I mean, the way you're reading it really adds legitimacy to it, and really, it's really stylish, and it's a good way to present other people's arguments. Also, I'd be interested to know what your source is on this. I like how you don't have a source here.
It seems to really matter. It's not just that I've directed a series that portrays Cleopatra as
So this is the director? Okay.
black, but that I have asked Egyptians to see
And I'm sure when she was speaking for this interview, this is exactly how she talked too. I mean, he's just representing her, right?
themselves as Africans, and they are furious at me for that. I'm okay with this.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Okay, let's break this down. First of all, what the hell is a melanated sister? Aside from albinos, everybody has melanin because they grew up in a hotter climate.
You know, I think I saw some of his stuff. Like, I didn't really like him back in the day, but I don't remember this. But this is... I don't even know if I want to call it chud stuff, because chuds typically have better points than this guy. And that's impressive. Impressive. And not in a good way. Not in a good way. Jesus Christ.
Climate, while white people grew up in a snowy climate. Second, you asking why do people need to see Cleopatra as white is such a deflection. Sure, I'm positive that there are some people out there who wish she was white instead of black, but the overwhelming majority of people are upset with how dark you portrayed her. There's other races aside from white or black. At the very least, get someone with a skin tone of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Maybe the director thought she was the best person for the job. Maybe, I don't know, we should just move on from the Netflix docudrama that nobody really liked and nobody cared about except for honestly racist.
Actually, no, get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, have him wear drag. If I had to pick a white person to play Cleopatra, I would probably pick Scarlett Johansson. After all, she was described as very beautiful. Put over a white or black person.
I'm sure they have the budget for Scarlett, but also, like, what, listen, I don't have any issue with Scarlett Johansson, but just such a standard name to throw out there. Like, everybody knows who Scarlett Johansson is. She might be the most famous woman actress working today. She's definitely a name that you can put, like, one of the few women names you can put at headlining a movie that would probably sell it decently. So it's such a strange, like, just a default to throw out that name. Again, nothing wrong with Scarlett Johansson, and yes, she is a gorgeous woman. But it just speaks to not much film knowledge to just spit out that name. She should play Cleopatra for a Netflix docudrama. Just why? Just because she's hot? Again, she is hot and she's a solid actress, but that's it? Sure.
I would probably pick a Native American or a Latino, but not an Asian. I actually think that would be worse than portraying her as white or black. And as for this whole asking Egyptians to see themselves as African, that's just dumb. Newsflash, African does not equal black. Here's a good joke my roommate Professor
Okay. Cool. Good to know.
Dreadlock came up with. He says to a random person he just met, "Hey, did you know the richest man in America is actually an African American?" And they respond with, "Wait a second. Oh,
Yes, Elon Musk is from Africa. His family made a fortune on blood diamonds. Just saying.
I thought it was Elon Musk." And then he says, "Yep, that's the African American."
It is part of the issue of calling people African American instead of black because I believe Charlize Theron is also from Africa. You know, maybe I should double check that before I say anything. Research time, guys. Where's Charlize Theron from? Okay, yeah. Charlize Theron was born in South Africa. Yeah, I mean, there are white people in Africa. This isn't like, he's talking like this is like news, and it's not. But yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that is the issue with using the term African American, because Charlize Theron would count as African American, when what you actually mean is like Black American, which is a different thing.
I'm talking about. Africa is a continent. There are white people there, black people there, and of course a huge part of the Middle East.
Again, you're acting like this is some sort of revolutionary concept. People know this. Like, were you researching this and you just learned it? Yes. Yeah.
And do you know what Egypt is a part of? That's right, the Middle East. Egyptians will see themselves as Middle Easterners before they ever see themselves as African. Egypt is in Africa, but it's also right next to Europe. You shouldn't be trying to force your American ideals onto a country of 100 million people. So yes, it does matter.
I mean, you've already brought up in this video, we don't know what color Cleopatra is. We don't have any clear examples of what color she is. So maybe cast the best person in the role in the universally panned Netflix docudrama that, honestly, the only people seem to care about is racist.
Matter how you depict her. And lastly, you saying, "I'm okay with this." I'm pretty sure that's cope. But making something about what you like, what you want, is purely an attitude I've only seen from directors. In terms of management, that is. If a burger company wants to stay on top, the managers just can't say, and just make the burgers.
I was about ready to say, is that Karen Page in the burger joint? That's weird.
I like. That goes for all restaurants in general. A hardware store can't just sell the tools that the manager likes. And that goes for every place that sells any kind of tool. It should never be about what you want. It should always be about the customer. So, long story short,
it should always be about the customer. Shouldn't it be about making the best movie possible? I feel like it should be... I feel like a degree of artistry should be allowed. Because what you are advocating for with that statement is essentially Hollywood based on pure money, which means all the franchises galore, all the stuff that chuds, frankly, like to complain about. That's what you're advocating for. Star Wars. We need more Star Wars. We need more Marvel. We need all of that because franchises are what make Hollywood money, and that's what they push out, frankly. The money system is how we got the entertainment industry we currently have that you guys scream about nonstop. So I think it's interesting you're arguing that they should base it on the money when that's literally what they do.
the reason why Cleopatra is black is because the director, along with a few people who worked on the show, wanted it that way. Oh god, I'm wondering in the future, will we have a black Genghis Khan? Just like we had a white one with John Wayne? I better shut up before I give them ideas. But yeah, Hollywood directors are allowed to have this attitude of, it's about what I want, because studios can just use the failure movies and documentaries they make as a tax write-off. And who do you think are the ones who are gonna pick up the slack?
I mean, true?
That's right, us, the taxpayers.
Oh my god. You do know the federal government actually prints money, primarily to issue out during tax time, but yeah. And he's making an argument, these companies make bombs and the taxpayers have to pay for it. I mean, we do have an issue with all the money in this country going to the billionaires. That is an absolute fucking issue. Do you want to tackle that in your video complaining about Black Cleopatra? I'm guessing not.
Oh god, look at this line in the article. The response from the Egyptian people was 100% fundamentally rooted in racism, which is a very modern idea. The ancient Egyptians, they didn't think about race like we do, because race has only really been contextualized since we understood it, since the transatlantic slave trade. Oh god, I'm so sick of this talking point. Race is not this modern idea that suddenly came about in the last couple hundred years. Yes, our modern interpretation of race is very different than what the Egyptians had, but they still had a definition for race. But what you...
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting overloaded with dumbness at my brain. I feel like my IQ has just been sapped by this fucking video, that it's getting tough to pay attention to what he's fucking saying.
think about race is a lot more closer to the modern interpretation than what the Egyptians thought. You think Africans are all of one race, along with probably Europeans and Asians.
Jesus Christ, where did you grab this image from? This is like from a fucking 1940s textbook, I swear to God. The fuck?
Through our Western lens, we do see race as white, black, Asian, South Asian, Middle Eastern, Native North Americans, and Native South Americans. But most places outside of America and throughout history see race a very different way. Europeans don't see themselves as the white race. They see themselves as British race, German race, French race. Yeah, personally, as an American, Jews look white to me. They didn't exactly look that way to the members of the Nationalist Socialist Party of Germany. I've had a black friend who
Congratulations. Congratulations on recognizing that this is all societal constructs. Yeah. That's not the word I was going for, but it's correct as well. These are all societal constructs built up to kind of divide people, frankly. None of this shit means anything, and it should all be ignored. Agonizing over the race of Cleopatra is a idiotic task. Just don't worry about it. Move on.
Who came from Africa. He did not see African Americans as the same race as him at all. Even though I'm white, I see myself as Northern European because I'm bigger than most white people. My roommate, Professor Dreadlock, is West Indian. He does not see himself as African at all. And lastly, how many of you guys know a white person who's
I feel like this is another argument a lot of the racists throw out there. Just don't look at race. And yes, in a perfect world, fucking yes, let's not look at race. We don't live in a perfect world. We live in the world we live in. We have to deal with the society we have. If we lived in a society where everybody was treated equally and race didn't matter, then yes, I would 100% agree. Let's not look at race. We don't live in that world yet. Help us live in that world by stop making dumb videos like this.
1/16 something else, and they identify.
That is a good point. He brought up the Nationals. He called them the National Socialist Party, didn't he? I missed that. Yeah. So technically, the Nazis were the National Socialist Party, but socialist was just a word they were using to sound better than they were. Nazis are fucking fascists. They're not socialist.
With whatever race that 1/16 is. Do you think Chinese people and Japanese people see themselves as the same race? I think if you lived in Egypt and you had a time machine and you went to any time period, a lot of random people during those time periods that you would speak to would probably say that they saw other people from other countries, even if they are in Africa, as different races from them. racism has existed throughout time. Sure, not in the same form we have today in America, but it's always been an awful part of human nature, just like lying, stealing, murder, and everything else.
Whoa, wait. Are you defending racism? Are you saying racism just always is going to exist and we shouldn't call it out when we see it? What the fuck is your argument right now? That's not good. What you seem to be setting up here.
I just hate this American perspective of, oh, the world didn't exist until we did. Don't get me wrong, for the longest time I thought there was only 2 countries, America and an endless sea of migrant workers. But I wasn't being asked to work on documentaries. So, the actress for Cleopatra said that blackwashing isn't a thing. So let's actually deconstruct that. So I did record a few arguments about this, but unfortunately, I didn't understand what the dictionary definition of what whitewashing is. According to Google, whitewashing is the practice of erasing people of color, either through replacing a minority character with a white character, or more commonly with a white actor, replacing a minority actor in the portrayal of a character of color. So now that we know the definition of whitewashing, let's see if we can use the same logic with blackwashing. Now, a few arguments that I've heard about blackwashing not existing is that there's not a lot of black characters out there, so they have to make their own. Well, this does make things complicated with the definition of whitewashing, considering that there's a lot more white characters out there than any other race of character, at least when it comes to the IPs that we actually care about. I don't see how it contradicts the definition. Sure.
Cool. Okay, we're just to ignore all societal issues and just be like, yeah, it's all bad. It's really, like, it's a thoughtful analysis. Deep, man. You're nailing it. Thank you for ignoring society and how we've treated races throughout the generations to give your shallow and shitty take. Thank you. I mean, why do we even need historians to explain stuff to us? We have random guys with robot avatars on the internet. They can explain stuff to us.
I think you can absolutely make the argument, using that logic, that whitewashing is worse than blackwashing. You can also make the argument that it's different when black people do it, but it's still clearly a thing that exists.
Well, I already made the argument that in a vacuum, it's actually all fine. It's societal context. It's the fact that we've been whitewashing so many characters, and, now we're just getting the other end of that.
Especially when you're taking a role away from an Egyptian, who are an extremely small minority in America. I understand people like this just don't want the term blackwashing to exist because it has bad connotations with it, just like with the term whitewashing. This is a clear attempt to
It's a very shallow read.
erase Egyptian heritage, just for black people to say, yeah, we did that. Out of every race that does washing the most, I would say it's black and white people by far. When was the last time you ever seen Asian washing? I see a lot of black groups who say things like the original Egyptians were black, the original Jews were black, the original Romans were black, and all these different types of inventions were invented by black people. If you guys want to have a really good laugh after you finish this video, look up Yaqub. I understand why a lot of them do this is because their culture and history was stripped away from them. Native Americans also go through something extremely similar, but they're a much smaller minority. We hear about the Middle Eastern history of Egypt. We hear about the most
God, he just keeps on going and going. And it's like, I've already debunked these arguments. For fuck's sake. Ugh.
the European Romans, the Northern European Vikings, the Asian samurais, the Native American warriors, and just so many others. What ancestors do black people have for themselves to look up to? Well, Africa has a really terrible climate. They didn't exactly have grain or easily tameable animals like the Europeans and Asians did. Bugs get into food, they love the heat, and Africa is very hot. Anyone who has ever had a fridge knows that food spoils quicker when it's warm. During the winter season in Europe, nature basically made them a fridge to store their stuff. And when you think about the African animals, lions, elephants, crocodiles, hippos, the European wolves just don't sound as bad anymore. Aside from Egypt, most of Africa that tried to develop just did not have easily tameable animals, grain.
I know, like, my brain has become Swiss cheese from this. I'm trying to finish it out because it's almost done, but fuck. I don't even know what the fuck his point is anymore. That, like, black people have a different environment? Yes. Well, I mean, it actually kind of depends. Like, there's black people, like, as you've already said, there's black people all over the world. Are you just, like, so Africans have a different environment.
And good weather conditions to become great nations like the ones in Europe and Asia.
Well, yeah, this guy is ignorant. Like, I don't think this guy has a not ignorant bone in his body at this point, because everything said in here has been ignorant. So it would actually be a twist if he was saying stuff that wasn't ignorant.
But given what they had, they became strong people. Some Romans were black. There were at least 8 historical knights who were black. There were even a handful of black samurai who existed. After the Civil War, many cowboys were black. A good chunk of the Egyptian population throughout history was black. At least currently with what we know, black people may not have that much historical evidence of what their civilizations used to be like. But a few of them were always there, in one culture or another. Sure, many scientists who have worked on some of the greatest inventions were black, but they were only a small part of the team. The filament for the light bulb that Lewis Latimer invented was indeed a great improvement, but I wouldn't say he invented the light bulb. However, people like George Washington Carver greatly increased our knowledge on botany, discovering that cotton plants kill the soil and peanuts rejuvenate it. And of course, there's one of the top 100 greatest people throughout history, Katherine Johnson. She was a math whiz who worked for NASA. Her incredible understanding of math helped NASA get to the moon. They even said themselves that they couldn't have done it without her. Good God, make a movie about her. What she did is 100 times greater than anything Cleopatra has done. But of course, knights, Vikings, and samurai will always be cooler than a botanist. But as technology improves, we will discover more about lost African history. Racism is an awful thing. While it has gone down throughout the years, it's still around. Don't get me wrong.
I feel like the internet's kind of allowed races to kind of clump onto each other. And you don't really encounter it that much in real life. I mean, it's there. It's not that bad. The internet, you get these groups of people who will come at you in waves to almost try to convince you that, like, this is a normal way of thinking, when it's not.
It can kind of be fun to feel superior to other groups of people, but with how common travel is throughout the world nowadays, mixed race people will just become more and more common, which will slowly remove the barriers that us humans have placed upon ourselves. The whole point of the African Queen series is to shed light on forgotten female African rulers. Cleopatra was not black, or at least not that black, and she is...
You have yet to present evidence, and I also don't care.
Certainly not forgotten. And even if they do continue this series, Africa is a very brutal continent. A lot of their rulers weren't exactly the nicest people. I hope if they do continue, that they'll use the backlash.
Yeah, it is more white replacement theory. You're not wrong. It's all variants on this.
This documentary got as a learning experience, and make actual documentaries about real black female forgotten rulers. This documentary is not the fault of black people. It's just another device that the rich Hollywood elites are trying to use to divide us by race.
Wow. I'm not talking about the Jew, by the way. That's a hell of a thing to put in your video. I mean, holy shit. Dude, I just thought you were talking about, like, movie stars and shit. I think it's interesting you went to the Jew and felt the need to put that in your video.
To keep us from focusing on our economic situation, this movie in less than a decade's time will be mostly forgotten about. But there will always be another movie or documentary that comes around to take its place. So let's get ourselves ready for it.
Is that his patrons? And it just... No, I'm tired of looking at screenshots of your patrons. Wow, that was mind-numbingly bad. Like, holy shit. That was atrocious.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.